Hello, everyone. I'm here, y'all. 2 weeks in a row. This is a big comeback. And I've got to say, it feels really good. I want to thank you for coming back, even though there was some radio silence there for a minute. But thank heaven, literally. I do thank heaven every day for teaching me exactly what I needed to know in this season of my life. And I think it's really important that we talk about the seasons of our lives, because when we're in turmoil, when we're in a challenge or we're in conflict, we become narrow focused and we can only see the problem at hand. We aren't thinking any further along. We aren't thinking any further ahead. But if we could keep somewhere in our minds to bring to the present moment in that challenge, that this is only a season. I know the scriptures say, like, this too shall pass. Sometimes that just seems like it's dismissive, but this has its season. This is the season for this right now. And how do you know? Well, you can't argue with it when it's there, right? But I'm really grateful that heaven didn't give me exactly what I wanted my whole life. And by putting me in situations that I did absolutely not agree with or could not control, had no choice but to face, I'm still squeezing every bit of lesson I can out of my past. And maybe because I don't want to relive it, but also because I believe there's more lessons to be learned with the knowledge I have now, looking back, with the intelligence and the wisdom that I've gained, looking back on all of my past challenges and past experiences and things that I didn't really want to be a part of, but ended up just being right there in the middle of it. What more could I learn from that? And I think the conflicts, the disconnections, the confusions, I know. It all has a way of showing up loud and fast. 1 second, you're in the middle of what feels like a normal moment, which normal is an illusion. I did a podcast on that one. Go check it out. It's wonderful. And then the next moment, something is said or done that turns everything sideways. And life comes at you and there's no stopping it. You're receiving all this information that you never wanted to see or hear or be a part of. Maybe the loud is what you're used to and the silence is what hurts the most. Either way, suddenly your mind is trying to solve this puzzle made of pain and chaos. And if you've been there, and if you're there now, I want you to hear this. You're not alone. You're not broken. You are a human. And you're navigating relationships and life, which are both beautiful and maddening at the same time. They're holy and they're hard. And over the last 6 to 8 months, I have been acquainted with grief. And not just the kind that comes from a challenge, but the kind that comes from trying to hold on to something that has already changed. And in that space, at first, when I took a deep breath, I began to notice something. After the storm, when things quiet down, it's just you. It's just your heart. It's just your spinning thoughts. And there's this moment, a very sacred moment, when you could ask, what just happened? Who am I right now? What was I trying to protect? And the most important part, what do I want this to mean moving forward in my life? I firmly believe we should have all been taught this in school. I started watching my mind this last 6 to 8 months in a new and different way. And it increased my abilities and my capacities to something I never knew. And I've mentioned it. And those of you who follow me can hear me talk about this because it has been literally life-changing. And I want to bring this to you. I seriously started watching, really watching, what stories did I feed my mind about the other person? What defenses did it build in me while I wasn't watching my mind? What painful thoughts created that bitter tension in my body? And the awareness around answering these questions in myself, answering these thoughts of mine, brought emotion and brought to my awareness my story. And this was the beginning of me tapping into agency in a new and better way. And this is where things started to shift for me. This is also where I see things start to shift for my clients, because once you see your story, you can start to steer it. You can move from being tossed around by emotion and reaction to becoming the observer of it and the chooser of it. And that's where the magic of the work that I do is. I help people slow down just enough to see clearly, to recognize where their power is and how to use it with peace and purpose. And look, this part's personal. I get chills just thinking about how God carries us when we have nothing left. How many times I knew it wasn't my strength carrying me. When hands are empty and hearts are shattered, but somehow we can whisper, "Thy will be done." And know, even if it gets darker before it gets brighter, there's still some light, there's still some lift. Maybe not the kind of light and lift that fixes everything instantly, but the kind that reminds you that He is in charge, that God is in charge. He sees it all and He sees you. And Christ heals everything. There are no depths He can't go. One of the biggest shifts I have seen in my clients happens when they stop trying to correct the other person and start choosing to connect with them instead. And I'm not talking about rolling over and pretending that everything's fine and that those poor behaviors don't need to be addressed later. I'm just talking about this grounded strength that comes from curiosity and compassion. Because curiosity cares what's going on in the mind of the other person, and compassion and charity always seek to end the suffering. So how can you tap into this? It's the willingness to ask, what else might be true here? And what if I really tried to understand what they are trying to say? Even if they have said it all wrong in my judgment, what if I could speak with more love and still hold a good boundary, protecting my peace? That's what I teach. And believe me, it's more simple than you think. It sounds like, how can you do that? But once you understand how your thoughts create your feelings and how your feelings fuel your actions, you suddenly realize you never were stuck. You were just in the habit of responding a certain way. And then you become an agent unto yourself. You're just one powerful pause, one breath away, one deep breath from a totally different experience. It gives space for a new thought. So if you're in the middle of something that's a relational rupture, like I'm talking about, when it just all breaks apart and falls apart all over the place, or if you've been left sitting in emotional debris from a conflict that still aches, let's talk. I work with people who are ready to stop spinning in their stories and start building bridges. Bridges to themselves and bridges to the people they love, bridges to places they'd rather be than where they are. I make it so simple. When you have a clear model and someone guiding you back to yourself with compassion, with clarity, then everything changes. The way you think begins to change, the way you speak begins to change, and the way you connect becomes deeper. In spite of the conflict, the story we used to have about it may have been that everything falls apart. It may have been that we're now so distant, we're not even on the same page. And whatever we believe is true. So the way you connect is literally just providing the space, providing this moment for your story to change. If that sounds like something you're craving, I want to invite you to come work with me. You don't have to figure it all out on your own. The most powerful relationships are not the ones without rupture and without conflict. On the contrary, they're the ones that had a lot of conflict and a lot of rupture and never gave up. They kept intentionally choosing it. And they're the ones that grew because of it. In the conflict, in the rupture, stronger, deeper, more enjoyable, more transparent, easier for sure. A relationship that you look forward to having instead of dreading if you have to spend all sorts of time together. Conflict adds to wherever you are. So if you're in the middle, if you're in the messiness or the mending part of it, What can you extract from that experience? How can you squeeze wisdom out of it? Because there is more for you. You have more options than you think you do. More connection, more understanding, more clarity, and much more love. And it all starts with just a single thought change, a breath before responding that provides you just a little bit of distance to observe what's happening. That moment that finds just enough courage to back up and choose to be closer to this person because of it instead of further away. I want you to stay tuned for next week's episode. I will expound on the power in taking a pause. And hopefully, after hearing this, you can wrap your mind around the story you have about conflict and what you've made it mean in your life. What the arguments, yelling, harsh words, the words we say that we don't even mean. What are you making it all add up to? That we're falling apart and it's a hopeless cause? Because we tell a deeper story when we're just alone by ourselves and it lingers and we ruminate on it. So we have to ask it questions to pull it apart and find out. All right. So tune in next week. And if anyone came to your mind while listening to this, please share it. It's up to you to see that that message gets to them, because you know that that's how heaven works. Prayers are answered often through one another. All right. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.